Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbprou.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be here with you once again on Tuesday evening. As you know, there's so many things you need to know as a business owner that you can't possibly know them all, but that doesn't mean that they can't hurt you. So it's important to continually learn and develop your skills and your knowledge about business throughout your journey. But not only that, your business can only go as far as you're prepared to take it. So it's another critical factor to being able to grow and scale is continuing to develop your leadership skills. And that's what tonight's show is all about. We focus on helping you build your business knowledge and build your leadership skills by bringing on outstanding guests to talk about important topics for entrepreneurs and small business owners. So thanks again. We always appreciate everybody tuning in. We welcome your comments and questions. If you haven't already liked or subscribed to what we're doing, please make sure to do that. And, let's get started. So tonight, I'm excited. We've had a lot of shows about AI, but they've all been on the positive side. But everything about AI isn't positive. So tonight's show is sort of some of the risks or potential negative challenges of AI. So definitely some valuable things to learn, and I'm sure some things that you haven't heard before. So, so tonight's show is called Before You Use AI, Legal and Compliance Checkpoints That Every Founder Needs to Know. And our guest tonight is Marcia Narine Weldon. So looking forward to it. So I'd like to welcome Marcia to the stage. Hey, Marcia, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm excellent. So appreciate you joining us tonight, taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you
I'm a happy lawyer for 34 years because there's nothing that makes me have more joy and gratitude than helping other people get to where they need to go without falling into some of the pitfalls.
Excellent. Okay, so definitely we always like to have people who have small business experience and knowledge because a lot of times what you do as a small business may be the opposite of what you do as what the larger businesses should do. So always appreciate that.
And I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, and I've also counseled people who are solopreneurs. So, and you're right, there's a big difference. But I think what everybody has in common is they almost never want to call their lawyer unless they absolutely have to. And I get that. So
yeah,
and I don't take it personally.
Yeah, especially smaller businesses. So
yes,
excellent. So when we start out, I always like to start with the basics, okay? Just to make sure everybody's on the same page and everybody understands where you're going from. So we're talking about.
Don't care about. The governance is the rules, the policies, the procedures. If you all have businesses, or maybe you also work someplace for somebody else, there's all these rules and policies that no one pays attention to. When we're thinking about AI, though, those kinds of issues can cost you your business in ways that aren't necessarily the case with other kinds of technology. And so when we're thinking about what are we talking about with AI, it could be the simple thing about using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever those are. And chances are, even if you have a policy, people are using it anyway in violation of your policy. And there's so many different risks. And I'm happy to talk through some of those in different categories. It might be your contract risks, what you're telling your customers. There are risks from what the regulators say in terms of what you're saying about using things. Your intellectual property, what do you actually own? You might be signing contracts with vendors that are using AI and you don't know about it. And maybe it's violating the contracts you have with your customers. So almost every business decision at some point can become a legal issue. And so I want to talk through with you and your audience about what some of those issues are, from the time that you're thinking about starting the business to the time that you're thinking about ending the business. And now with most people thinking about using AI for everything, AI is their chief of staff, their CFO, which we both agree is a bad idea. AI is their lawyer, another bad idea. But people can depend on these things. And as a person who not only is a lawyer, but I'm also training one of the large language models that everybody's heard of, and the co-lead to make sure that it's trained on legal accuracy, AI is not ready yet. And it looks ready. And that's the biggest thing that I worry about. I see it with the founders I represent. I hear it from investors, from bankers, et cetera, that so many people are relying on AI as their lawyer because it's cheap and it's instant. But they don't realize that it may not be right. And even if it's 80% right or 90% right, that 10% is the thing that could cost you your business.
Definitely, we don't want to lose our businesses. And AI is really important. Many times, we're using AI, just getting into using AI, and trying to figure it out. But what would you say are the top 3 things that we should be aware of as we're starting out using AI?
First thing I would say is you might be using a tool, and I'm just going to name a bunch of them. Maybe it's ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Gemini, whatever it is. And you say, I'm paying for this. I pay the $20 a month plan, so I'm protected. Paying or not paying is not what protects you. And what are we worried about? We're worried about you putting in your customer data, your client data, your personal data in there, and it actually getting out. Why? Because when you're putting your data and you're using any of the large language models, I'm just going to call them the models. When you're using any of the models, those models are learning from what you put in there, right? And so if you don't stop it from learning and from training on your data is out there for the public. And there have been people who have seen their conversations out on the internet because they thought they were private. And the biggest mistake I think people use when they're using AI, whether it's personally or for their business, is they think if they do the paid model, that means that their data is private, and it's not. And if you're business owners, you're likely putting your customers' data in there as well. And you're not going to remember, instead of saying Andrew Frazier, I'm going to call him Andrew Major, and people aren't going to know. You're not going to remember that. You're going to put in your customer contract. You're going to put in the terms of service. You're going to put in your business strategy. And you may not realize that you're training the model on your data and possibly your customers' data.
All right, so
that's one.
Okay, well, just so you're saying that, like I've got ChatGPT, and they have this button in the options that you could say to not share your data. But so does that mean I shouldn't trust that?
First of all, make sure you do that. Make sure you go to the privacy settings and say, don't train on my data. But here's what you also need to know. A lot of the times, so I think almost all of the big ones changed their terms of service this month. The terms of service may say different things. You might have said, don't train on my data, but there may be other things that they may say. They may retain the information. Also, human beings like me will look at your data anyway, because we're also training the model and we need to see what the data is. So mistake number one is assuming that if you have a paid plan, you're protected. So you always want to go in your settings and find and make sure it doesn't train on your data. See how long it retains your data. It may keep your data for a long time. And also, although I never want you all to use AI as your lawyer, here's the one exception. Cut and paste the terms of service of the AI that you use. Let's say you use ChatGPT with OpenAI. I want you to go into Claude, go into another one and say, please review this and tell me all the things I need to know from a privacy perspective. Let me know if this trains on my data. Let me know how long it retains my data. Let me know if it will indemnify me if there's a problem. What do I mean by that? If you've seen a contract, you see something like an indemnification clause. If Andrew and I are in a business partnership together, he does something wrong. This is America. We get sued, right? I didn't do anything wrong. Andrew did something wrong, but both of us get sued. In my contract, I want something saying that Andrew is going to indemnify me for those losses. He's going to pay for the legal fees, the settlement, all kinds of other things. Now let's take it back to AI. OpenAI is a huge company, allegedly worth, billions and trillions of dollars. If you get into trouble because of your AI use and they sue OpenAI also, you are paying for OpenAI's legal fees. They are not paying for yours. Okay, so the terms of service are really important. So I would use, if you're using ChatGPT, don't go into OpenAI and say, tell me what it says. Go into another one, go into Claude, and then vice versa, and say, tell me the risks that I have. Tell me what the privacy rules are. Tell me if it's training my data. Telling me if it's retaining my data, because you want to know how long it's being retained. And part of this is because you may have customer contracts that talk about what you do with their data. And so you may be violating your own customer contracts, especially if you are dealing with a very large company. Maybe you're part of a supply chain. Those privacy rules that might be in those 50-page contracts that nobody ever reads are really important. And a lot of them have a concern about whether AI is being used to produce their work or their work is going into AI. So look at your contracts, because you might be also violating the contracts you have with your customers. That's the second biggest thing I would say if you're dealing with AI. Number one, make sure you understand the terms of the ones that you're using and don't think that paying is what you need. Number two is, are you violating the terms of your own contracts with your own customers? If you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're in a highly regulated industry, if you have confidential information, you want to be especially careful, because there's all kinds of laws and rules that could come into play there.
Okay. So
And I see one of your chat, I'm used to looking at the chat, says, I'm glad FTC is going to be part of the discussion. That's the other thing, right? You may be FTC, Federal Trade Commission. They look at everything. Their goal is to make sure that you are not defrauding the public with what you say. The FTC is very concerned about AI-generated testimonials, about using AI in your products and services and not telling people about that. And so when you're thinking about that, and the penalties for the FTC can be long and severe. They have put 20-year consent decrees against social media influencers because of false and misleading statements. And remember what I said about AI. Not only is it not legally ready, it's not ready for a lot of things. And AI is trained to make you feel like a genius. That's why when you put something in, like, this is gold, you're amazing, you're in the top 0.1%, they'll tell you all that, but you don't verify things because it looks right. And then you go put a statement out to the public about a business thing, about a claim, about a health claim, and about using artificial intelligence. Those could be problems as well.
Okay. So so definitely that can be a challenge. So each of those are key. So now, like, if you don't like the terms, it's not like you can negotiate them, right?
That would be correct. The negotiation is, we've got 100 million other customers. That's a good answer, right? But you want to find, some of them care more about safety than others, or so they say, and the terms will be different, right?
Okay.
And they all change them. But remember, they're all in a race. Every single one of these companies is in a race to get more customers, etc. So you always want to make sure. And when they change their terms of service, you guys never read them. Nobody does. And even if you could read them, you wouldn't understand them. So one of the only times I say, do people use AI to test AI, is to say, explain to me in plain English with the 5th to 8th grade reading level as of this date, make sure you ask the date, what the terms of service are, and ask it questions. For example, when Claude Cowork first came out, because I use Claude a lot, I use all the models. At any given time, I have 6 different models open on my computer. And I said, everybody's using Claude Cowork. I know I'm a lawyer. You're terrified. I'm going to violate some rules. What do you think about Claude Cowork? And it literally gave me an entire 3-page document about why I should not use it. And here's why. It said, Marcia, you have 9 email addresses, because I do, and I'm pretty sure there's something legal in one of your non-legal email addresses, and it's going to pull from that, and that's going to cause a problem. Plus, there have been these various breaches, and even though Anthropic, which is Claude, has done everything it can to patch it, there are several instances where it can't. So for Marcia, I think it's very risky for you, because it knows the kind of stuff I did. Mm-hmm. I ended up building all kinds of security things around it, so now Claude Coworker and I are friends. But I asked it because it knew so much about me that it said there are risks. And if you ask, they will tell you.
Okay. Excellent. So definitely it's good to figure that out. It's a little scary. So now let me go back to, you said that they're going to use your data. Is there any thing you can pay for or set up?
Do the enterprise and Teams versions. And okay. If you ask them to give you a chart, and Claude is especially good with this, and I'm under an NDA, and I'm not going to tell you which one I work for, so don't assume that because I mentioned when I work for them, I just want to be clear. Mm-hmm. It'll give you a comparison, because when I went to Claude Teams, because I brought people in my Teams on there, Teams has better data protection than the Pro or the Max or the other plans. And it gave me a side-by-side chart, and all of them will do that. I will say the riskiest thing is to do free. Mm-hmm. But don't assume that paid is going to get you everything that you need.
Okay. Excellent. So, all right. Well, we started off the show, went through a few things, but before we go too far, I just always like to share that this show is one of the brain trust initiatives of Small Business Pro University. And we really focus on helping entrepreneurs and business owners like you be more successful. And I just want to share a short video about, so you can know a little bit more about the university. And then we'll be back talking small business with Marcia. Many small businesses experience low or no revenue growth, and the owners are not making enough money. I founded Small Business Pro University to help you break that cycle by empowering you with greater knowledge and enhanced skills to lead your organization more effectively. Over the past 15 years, I've collaborated with organizations like the Small Business Development Center, Rising Tide Capital, Empower the Village, NJMEP, Rutgers University, and SCORE to work one-on-one with over 1,000 business owners and teach tens of thousands of people about business. My experience includes serving as a naval officer, managing businesses, graduating from MIT, earning an MBA from NYU, and achieving the CFA designation, which has prepared me to accomplish my mission of helping 1 million and 8 business owners to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth by 2028. My vision is to create the ultimate business ecosystem for entrepreneurs. Small Business Pro University empowers entrepreneurs like you to run their businesses more professionally and create sustainable enterprises. We employ my proven proprietary Masterpreneur Playbook framework to guide your journey along the Masterpreneur path and facilitate your Masterpreneur evolution to work on your business and scale faster and easier. Small Business Pro University provides access to valuable resources, partnerships, and relationships that will help you to sell more, maximize profit, and finance growth. Our Masterpreneur initiatives include the Small Business Pro Network, 100+ expert-led multimedia courses, intensive training workshops, Spanish language training, Leadership Live at 8:05 live stream and podcast, in-person Power Breakfast events, and advisory coaching, consulting, and training services. All right, Marcia. So I'd like to go back to the basics again.
Sure.
Because you talked about LLM, and there's probably other vocabulary words in AI that we should have an understanding of.
Sure.
On one of my recent shows, the guest was like, talking about vibe coding. And I was like, what's vibe coding? And then I realized, oh, I am doing vibe coding. So if you could
Sure.
talk about some of the key vocabulary words that
Right.
we should know about AI.
So when I use the word LLM, large language model, right, those are the ones that you're used to. They take billions of parameters or pieces of information together so that they can give you the information that you see. So example of a large language model, ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Manus, Meta, all of those. Okay. You might hear of a small language model. That's when someone goes ahead and puts their own smaller one together. Part of the concern with large language models, like I said, is that they hallucinate. What does hallucinate mean? They say things to make it look like it's correct, and you wouldn't necessarily know. Why this is particularly important in the legal area is because even lawyers are getting fined and penalized every single day because they use AI for their legal research. They cite cases that do not exist. The judge realizes that they don't exist, and they get fined and penalized. And they should know better. So imagine the regular person. So hallucinates is another word. Token is a word that's going to be even more important. We don't think about tokens right now. I want you to think of the AI companies as people that want to get you hooked on the product, and then it's going to become really expensive and you're not going to be able to stop. Right now, you pay your amount of money, you do this stuff. Sometimes it stops you because you've used too much. We're now going to a consumption model as opposed to a flat rate model, where you're going to be paying for your usage. Big businesses are realizing this now. One big business spent, I think, like $3 million in tokens in 1 month because they didn't realize what employees were doing. So you might hear of the words like tokens. That's another important word to think about. But I wanted to, Andrew, before I go back to the vocabulary, I wanted to say something because I was watching your video, and this is another big issue. If you remember almost nothing else, this is one of the things I want you guys to remember. You have the little TM for the trademark sign next to a lot of your of your work, right? We've got different kinds of intellectual property. Copyright, right? Books, ideas. Trademark, you're trying to protect your brand. Trade secret, which you have to keep secret. And then patents. Okay. You have the TM because you're trying to protect your brand. The Copyright Office and the Trademark Office look at AI completely differently. And for every business, intellectual property is the most important asset that you have. When you're going to sell your business, it's part of the goodwill. It's the most important, and every single person has it, right? If you create your logo or an ebook using AI, you've got a great prompt, you're going back and forth, but you create your logo, something for your company. Again, I want to sell an ebook. Look at this ebook in 15 minutes. I'm going to sell it for $100. The Copyright Office will say, this is likely not protected by copyright. It's really, really important. Okay, so you're not going to have that protection if someone else does it. You write a book and you spend, even if you spend days on it, but you write it with AI and you use AI for it, someone else can take that book and say it's theirs because the Copyright Office says there's not enough human involvement. And what does it mean for enough human involvement? I have no idea because the Copyright Office won't tell you. But there have been people who have thought that their works were protected and they weren't. That's the Copyright Office. Trademark Office is the complete opposite. Trademark Office, so you can trademark your logo. You saw Andrew have TM all over his works because his phrases. Trademark Office says we just want to make sure there's no confusion in the marketplace. So if you can use AI all you want, we're fine with that. So Copyright Office says probably not. Trademark Office says probably. Now let's say you're working on your business plan. You've got a fantastic trade secret. Trade secrets, by definition, have to be kept secret. So remember, you hear the legend about Coca-Cola having a vault for the secret formula. It's a trade secret. You can never reveal it. Once you reveal it, it loses that protection. Now imagine you're putting in your great business idea in one of the large language models, in ChatGPT, Anthropic, whatever it is. You've come up with the world's greatest idea. You have now put your trade secret out into the open ether, and you're not going to have that trade secret protection. Again, especially if you're not saying don't train on my data and don't retain my data. Even so, there are some who say that's still not going to get the trade secret protection because you know there's a possibility of a breach, right? So all of these different ways that you need to protect your brand, you may not be protecting it depending on how you're using AI and how much you're using AI. So that's one of the biggest things. I do see a question about vendors, and I'm happy to talk about that unless, Andrew, you wanted me to talk about something else.
Let's go with the question.
So someone says, how should founders evaluate new AI vendors? Few things to realize. No matter what other kind of contract you signed, maybe you've signed a SaaS agreement, software as a service agreement. That's a subscription, right? That is a very different kind of an agreement from an AI vendor agreement. A few things. Remember, number one, the AI itself can drift in its capabilities. It's literally called model drift. Your contract, the vendor contract, may not account for that. You need to ask the vendor really specifically those exact questions about how do you use my data? Where is my data stored? How is my data stored? And what happens if there's a breach, right? For those of you that have cyber insurance or other kinds of things, you'll probably see there's some AI carve-outs because AI makes cyber attacks much, much easier to happen, and it's much riskier. So if your vendor does not talk about how they protect your data and when they're going to tell you if there's a breach, you're going to have a problem. Another vocabulary word is a black box. The black box, because it's very hard for even engineers can't tell you exactly how AI works. That's why they're always surprised when it improves so fast, right? So your vendor may say, we really can't tell you how it works. It's a black box. That's not a good enough answer because again, if you've got a vendor, it's likely because you're putting your own business data or your customer's business data in there. So you want to be careful. When you're looking at those vendor contracts, look at that indemnification issue. Are they going to pay for your legal fees and your costs if there is a breach on their side? Are there limitations of liability? It might say the limit of our liability is the amount that you paid for this contract for the past 12 months. So if you pay, $100 a month, that's not a lot. So those are the kinds of things to think about, that there's a huge asymmetry, a huge difference in knowledge between what you know and what the AI vendor knows. And that's the problem. So ask a lot of questions. And if they refuse to answer it, then you need to not sign with them. And by the way, because almost all vendors are now using AI, look at your contracts with every vendor, even if it's not an AI contract, because you want to look to make sure that if there's that lawsuit, there's not going to be that limitation of liability. I would ask for something that's called a super cap. You might cap me at $10,000 for here, but if there's anything related to a breach or a cyber attack or something because of AI, and you guys were using AI, then you go above that cap to whatever the amount of my losses is. I'm not your lawyer, though. I'm just giving you some legal education. But that's what I would be looking at, because this is where, and look at your insurance policies as well. Insurance policies, insurance companies are very wary of certain things with AI. See if there's any carve out. Is there something they're saying, we will not cover this if this is an AI related issue? So you want to be careful of those. So even if you are just starting to use AI, as soon as you start using AI, look at your contracts with your customers, your contracts with your vendors, and check your insurance coverage to see if there are carve-outs or if you need to renegotiate some of these policies. And hopefully that answers some of the vendor question.
Okay, no, definitely appreciate the question and the answer. I mean, I think that's important for us to know more about. So now you said that AI makes cyber attacks easier. Why is that and how is that?
So a few ways. From a data privacy perspective, and you'll talk to a lot of privacy experts that say they think privacy is dead. not just because of AI, but remember, if you've ever, I don't know if you guys have ever met an actual hacker. They have white hat hackers. There's all kinds of formulas and they use computers, but it takes a while to do certain kinds of hacks. With AI, it can be done so much faster because AI can compute all the potential formulas to get into your computer faster. Number two, there's something that's called a prompt injection attack, where, you've heard of malware and phishing, and if you ever worked for a company, you've had to go through all that privacy training. A prompt injection attack means basically the hack comes through a prompt. So, and we're not going to get into all the technicalities about how that happens, but that can be particularly dangerous, and that makes it much easier. And then the other issue is the concept of deep fakes. And some of people in your audience may have heard about it. Some people are hearing about it in the news lately because you're looking at deep fakes when it comes to software that can actually take the clothes off of a person in a picture and make them look nude. And we have a lot of teenagers and middle school kids that are being pretty much terrorized by these deep fakes. So it's one of the only things that Congress has agreed on. They've passed laws on this now. But there's also deep fakes in the corporate sphere. And there was a very famous case 2 years ago with a large international bank, and they never said which one it was. And this guy had gone through his privacy training, and he gets an email saying, release $15 million to these 5 accounts. And it looked completely crazy. So he said, that doesn't sound right. I did my privacy training. I think we need to get on a Zoom call to confirm. And so they said, okay, they set up a Zoom call. They had 5 people in a deep fake video answering in real time. So it literally looked like them. Their mouths were looking like them. And they talked to him and they answered their question. This is the level. And this was 2 years ago, how good AI was with deep fakes. That bank actually ended up losing 25 million. Okay, because as soon as the guy figured, all right, these people are legitimate, he wired even more money. So that was 2 years ago. Imagine how much better it is today. That's the concern when it comes to cyber attacks and cybersecurity. This is why a lot of insurance policies have higher premiums on these issues. And this is why, again, check your customer contracts to make sure that you're not taking on certain kinds of liability. And that's why I say I want you guys to read your terms of service for the AI companies you use and the vendors. So whether it's an AI person that's going to actually set something up for you, or if it's actually your ChatGPT or Claude, you want to check that because you may not be covered. And for a small business, a cyber attack can knock you out. Another thing, while we're still on the privacy, 2 days ago, if any of you do business in the EU or you market to people in the EU, the EU AI Act has come into effect on Sunday. And there are provisions that really affect small business owners. I'm not going to go into it into detail here. Write it down, talk to your lawyer or look it up, but look at the EU AI Act. It doesn't matter if you have 2 employees or 2 million employees. If you are targeting people in the EU, if you're targeting residents in the EU, you're doing business over there, they've got rules. And remember, the UK is not the same as the EU, and they've got their own rules. Second thing, with AI, makes privacy regulation compliance much, much harder, not just in the European Union, but here in the United States. I'm representing a founder, and they're using biometrics in a health app that they're putting together. And it's an AI-powered health app. Because of both the privacy laws and the AI rules, it is very, very expensive for them to comply with this. And in the United States, every single state has their own privacy rules. And I think there are 30 different states with different rules on AI. So if you're using AI, you want to check your state law as well.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, definitely, the European Union does a lot more regulation.
More regulation than production, as people say.
More protection, too. The U.S. kind of has no regulation and no protection. So, and even just not AI, just emails. You can get into big trouble using practices on EU residents that are okay to use over here. So,
And even for emails, by the way, here, you use AI to speed up your processes. You could run afoul of the FTC's rule. That's $53,000 an incident. And AI is making things much easier because, again, you might have heard of agents. You sit there and tell your AI agent, I want you to email everybody in the tri-state area about this new offer. The agent can do it.
right.
And you're probably going to be, having potentially millions of dollars with fines.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah.
I see
So,
a question about coaches and consultants, if you want me to answer it in your chat.
sure, sure. You're like on the chat even
I
better
teach,
than I am.
because I teach online. I teach online, so I'm always monitoring the chat, and the kids who will never raise their hand will always go in the chat. So I am also an executive coach, and I work with a lot of coaches, and worse, I coach lawyers, so they're freaked out about any kind of privacy. Few things, especially for coaches. Number one, and this actually goes for anybody who uses an AI note taker, you have to get consent before you use an AI note taker. I know a lot of coaches like to now do notes so that they can focus and their client doesn't have to write things down. They have a whole summary. Your client must consent. Now, it's easier if they come on a Zoom thing and the note taker pops up and they know it. Generally, by staying on there, they're consenting. But make sure you put it in your client contracts. Now, let's say you have a client contract, but you weren't talking about AI because you've been with this client for a while and it never came up. Should you disclose that you're using AI? Absolutely. Because your client might say, I would not have consented. Now, usually, again, if it's by Zoom or something like that, they'll see it. But some coaches will sit there and just press record on their phone and have AI do a transcript. That could be illegal wiretapping. And there are some states that you require one person consent. Some states you require all party consent. Depending on where you are and where they are, those might apply. So if you're using an AI note taker without consent, that could be a problem. Number two, for coaches and consultants, this is especially why the privacy stuff is important there. Because if you don't have your privacy settings, you've now put this person's information in something that can, again, go out on the internet, whether there's a hack or just in general, because you're helping to train the model. If you're a coach and consultant in your conversation, there may come a time when you should affirmatively, and this is not legally required, but this is best practice. If you see something's getting really heavy and the client may not want a transcript of it, you want to go ahead and turn that recording off. And you want to have a process in your contract where you delete these recordings after a period of time. Any AI note taker, from a legal perspective, can be a disaster because it is a complete transcript of everything you've said. So if there is a lawsuit, at some point, there is a transcript of everything that is said there. So you really want to be careful about that. For some clients, for some of you who are consultants, you are going to start to see more people, or I'm advising my clients to tell their consultants that they want to know how much AI is used in the work. If it's more than 50% for a project or for a document, they want to be informed about that. Because what they want to know is, are they paying for AI, which they could do themselves, or are they paying for you? So you may see your clients start asking you certain things about that as well.
All right. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's actually a little bit scary because I actually use those, and I don't explicitly put that in my contracts, but.
And you should, and most people don't, right? But because it wasn't an issue before, nobody thought about it.
Right.
But keep in mind, let's say you're a coach and a company has paid for your client. Does your contract with the company say they have the right to the records of the coaching sessions, right? Or maybe they have a right to a summary of the progress. If I'm the company, I say, well, I want the summary of the transcripts too, right? You never know. And they may have the rights to those things.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So definitely have to think a little deeper on those. So now on the note takers, is there a way to turn off the sharing?
You can, but it's not a matter of turning off the sharing. Is that if you use Otter or Fireflies, they have your recordings. right?
Okay.
So you want to go and check out those terms of service. I'm a general counsel for 3 nonprofit boards, and they're all mad at me when I tell them no note takers during the meetings.
Mm.
Why? Because if you have the regular secretary of the meeting, they're going to summarize things. From 8 o'clock to 8:22, they discuss the budget. The budget was approved, right? If you have your note takers like, Andrew, I don't think you're very fiscally responsible. Why are we in the red? And then Andrew, and then they go back and forth. None of that goes in the actual minutes, but you have a complete transcript of it. And then 3 years from now, when there's a lawsuit and I am the lawyer, I have the entire transcript of everything you said. So you can't say, I don't remember. I'll say, oh, good, because Otto remembers. Here's the transcript, right? And you don't want that to happen. This is why lawyers don't like note takers, because I would much rather you 3 years from now say, I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. Of course, I don't remember what happened 3 years from now. Than the other attorney saying, see line 32 when you said XYZ. We don't want that.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. So now, of course, there's regulations around AI, and is everything the same for large and small businesses, or is there a cutoff on certain things? Because
For some laws, especially the employment laws, there are certain cutoffs.
Okay.
There's federal cutoffs, there's state cutoffs, and for those of you who live in California or in other places, there's city cutoffs, right? Same thing for privacy, same thing for AI. One of the things to think about is, again, AI makes things so much easier and faster.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of rules and laws now that if you're using AI for automated decision making, right, whether that is for screening employees, for making certain kinds of decisions, there could be you have to disclose it, and there could be some liability. If you are in New York City, if you are in California, if you're in other parts of the country, there are some very, very specific rules about AI in employment. And again, for small business owners, what do we want to do? We want to save money. Why would I hire this big, expensive company to do this stuff for me when I can just use AI for it? Fine. But now Workday, which is one of the biggest personnel companies in the world, is involved in a massive class action because of AI basically rejecting people within about 30 seconds of applying for a job, because it was allegedly looking at things like zip code, because you could tell a lot about the racial demographics by zip code, looking at the names, looking at where the people went to school, and making decisions, right? So automated decision making is something that across the administrations, Trump, Biden, et cetera, has been consistent, is a problem. And the government is looking for those things. And plaintiffs' lawyers are looking for those kinds of things as well.
Okay. So, so there needs to be some human thinking in the process. All right. So, we got a couple other questions in the chat. So let me just go back to them. So, we can't do everything, but if a business could only implement one AI safeguard today, what would you recommend it be?
First thing I would do is to do an audit of what AI tools you're actually using, including the ones that you didn't pay for, like the people in your office that are doing the shadow AI, just using AI that you don't even know about. And then for that AI safeguard, I think the best safeguard is actually policies and training. And I'll tell you, only if it's done right. The training has to be practical. It has to relate to what the people actually do. It can't be a generic off the shelf, and it has to be done and reinforced consistently, because there's not a tool that you could have that can overcome the stupidity or the bad intent of a person who wants to get into your system, right? And so if you don't consistently train people and you don't reinforce it, it doesn't matter what you have, right? The Pentagon and other companies and countries get hacked almost every day, or attempted to hack. Your small business is not a safeguard, so no tool you could buy would be the best one that you could safeguard it. It's really making sure that your people understand the seriousness and that you keep up with what's going on. And it's really hard because the AI models are getting better every 2 to 3 months. I'm working on a model that's probably not going to come out for several months, but it's gonna blow you away. But all that also means is that we're going to trust it even more, and we're going to outsource what our thinking is, and we're going to forget the safeguards. So keep up. I actually do a Google alert, and I have a command center that sends me articles on AI every day. So I keep up with what's going on. But make sure you're also keeping up with what your people are doing who work for you.
All right, so you got to make sure your people aren't letting people things in, but I guess if they can
And your
get you,
independent contractors, by the way, right? Most small businesses can't afford full-time employees for everything, so use independent contractors, and those people can really cause a problem. If you get sued for something that the vendor, the AI company, or your independent contractor does, the law is very clear. You are liable for it. So what independent contractors are using, if you're using them now, I'd reach out to every single one of them tomorrow. Hey, let me know, how are you using AI in the work that you do? What plan do you have? How are you separating my data? Are you redacting or you're removing my name? Are you taking out confidential information about me before you put it into AI? Right? If I asked you to delete the records, could you delete the records? Right? All of those things are questions that we never thought to ask even a year ago.
okay, okay, and I guess also one other thing would be to be a good actor. If you don't want anyone coming after you just because you were acting up or not treating them right, because they have a lot more tools even beyond just giving you a bad review. So,
That's right.
so definitely AI makes that possible as well. So, we've covered a lot of stuff. I think we only got to the first two of the three things that we should work out. Is there one other thing that we haven't covered that we should cover?
See, we've looked at intellectual property, looked at employment stuff, um, contractors, privacy, looked at a lot of things. I don't know. Is there anything else in the chat that we didn't cover that you guys want to cover?
Um, I guess one other question is common compliance mistakes that happen across industries.
Um, I think the biggest compliance mistake is not knowing what's in your contracts. And things only become a problem when they become a problem, right? I saw a client who did not know that she could not, she had a coaching client, and a big company bought the company her client worked for. So then they gave her a new contract, 60-page agreement they gave her. She didn't know that she was not allowed to use AI. And she got so dependent on AI that she didn't even know what to tell them. She had to give up that contract because she wasn't going to be able to do it without it. So not knowing what's in your contracts and not knowing what the people around you are doing is the most common mistake. And it happens across every single industry, because every single industry is saying, how can I use AI to make my life better? What can I automate? What can I augment? What can I totally replace? And that is a smart business decision. So I might be scary about AI, but I'm not anti-AI. I think you absolutely should use it. But because it changes so fast, and because people go on to the latest model when as soon as it comes out, I always wait a few days before I try the new technology, except for the fact that I work for one of the companies. If I didn't, I would wait a few days because so many bugs are coming out, and you're seeing sometimes things. You're seeing, people putting in programs that delete all the company emails. So you want to make sure you really know the tools and understand what those contracts are. Every single industry has it. I do think regulated industries have to be more careful, and by that I mean regulated by confidentiality and others, because I think the risks are higher.
Definitely, and I've worked with manufacturers who work with the military, and the military has very high standards. And for a small business to be in compliance may not be within your budget. So, you really have to understand and look at what types of projects you can successfully deliver on. So,
And that's why looking at that insurance policy is really important. Or call your insurance carrier tomorrow and say, hey, by the way, does my policy cover me if there was, an issue happened with an AI company or an AI vendor or something like that? Because you really want to find out. And if they say, no, actually, we don't cover you for that, you want to make sure, or if you're renewing the contracts, look at them through those eyes to see, because AI is every possible thing that can go wrong can be magnified when it comes to artificial intelligence, as
Yep.
well as all the exponential business benefits, can be raised too. It's just a balance.
Yep. So, there's always the yin and the yang. But, one thing I would say is for small business owners, AI is really the first technology that people have gotten real excited about that really proved to be as or more beneficial to small business owners than it started out to be expected. So there is a lot of positives with it as well. I do have another question. I think it's the perfect question for where we are because we're close to the end. So, where can viewers continue learning about AI compliance after this show? I like that. Thanks, Rick.
Um, for AI compliance, I think there are some trusted and credible um, people on YouTube. I would look at companies that specialize in compliance. I would look at law firm videos, but sometimes they can be a little bit dry, to be honest. IBM and some of the other companies do a really good job at putting things out. But again, AI compliance is basically not just compliance with the laws that regulate AI, but the laws where AI can make things worse, where you could have more false claims kinds of issues, where you could have more data breach issues. So I would look to business, if you are part of a business organization, a local chamber of commerce, often they will have resources or newsletters that'll be helpful. Because at this point, I look at AI resources that are, for developers and software developers. So I don't look at more of the AI compliance stuff, but the biggest areas would be privacy, employment, documentation, contracts. So if you have a business association that you're part of, I would see if they've got resources that they can help you. And then you can also, please feel free to reach out to me. I am launching a product called Legally Lucid, where I'm putting together templates and checklists and videos and business diagnostics for small and medium-sized businesses who may not even realize that they should even be asking some of these kinds of questions. It'll cover intellectual property, it'll cover contracts, employment law, using AI, technology agreements, supply chain, insurance. I am also looking for some beta testers. So if you can reach out to me there or reach out to me on LinkedIn, if all the first 10 people, you'll be happy to get you to be a beta tester. So you'll get templates and checklists and lots of resources as well, because I want to put something out that's going to help the small business community. I see so many contracts that I have to rewrite because they were written with AI. It is terrible, and I have to rewrite it, and it would have saved me much more time. And I think the other thing to say, and again, I'm not looking for legal clients, so don't reach out to me for legal advice. But I've seen a lot of companies that say, so Perplexity, for example, really good when it comes to facts and finding things, but they had their contract reviewer, and I put a contract in it, and the questions were great, but it got 3 major things wrong, right? Legally wrong. But because I'm a lawyer and I knew that it was legally wrong, I said, Perplexity is no good for that. If I was a layperson, I would have thought I would never hire a lawyer again. So really be careful when you're looking at the kinds of tools out there that will analyze your contracts or others. If they are not done and read by an actual human being, even using AI, I wouldn't use them. But if you want to be a beta tester for what I'm putting out, mine does not analyze contracts, but it gives you the kinds of questions and things to think about. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to take some additional free beta testers where you'll get access to the product for the lifetime of the product after that too.
Okay, excellent. So, Marcia, we've got your website address in the chat. So anybody who wants to learn more about Marcia through the website, and then we also got your LinkedIn profile in the chat. So definitely, feel free to connect with Marcia and follow her because she does put out content as well. So, Marcia, one thing we always do at the end of the show is we ask the guests to share the 3 key takeaways from the show because we talk about a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes it's hard for people to remember more than three things. So if you could take a minute, I'll play a short video and just jot down, three things that you think people should take away from what we discussed, so that they can start benefiting from it tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So we'll play this short video, and then we'll be back with Marcia. Okay. Hi, Andrew here, and I'm excited to announce the launch of our new book, 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey. 5 years, 33 incredible guests, hundreds of powerful business lessons, and now it's all in one place. Introducing 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey, a brand new book built from the insights, wisdom, and strategies shared by the guest experts of our podcast, Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Inside, you'll discover actionable tips on how to launch smarter.
So if you have an idea that you have researched and you know who your customer is and you think that you've got the experience you need, now is a perfect time to start a business. But remember, start as a side hustle first.
Grow faster.
So sales is about problem solving, not about manipulating. You have to understand the math of your business, the sales math.
Lead more effectively.
You shouldn't expect someone to be you. You have to understand and create processes to basically train people on how to handle certain situations and basically set people on the right path, right? So they can become successful within your organization.
And scale your business with confidence.
Bet on yourself and not be afraid to take risks and to know that you have within you the ability to accomplish your dreams and accomplish your goals.
Think like an entrepreneur. Now, I know there may be many entrepreneurs listening, but there may be some who aren't entrepreneurs. It's all well and good. I'm here to say entrepreneurship is not just something you do, it's a way that you think. And the characteristics of an entrepreneur's thinking are creativity, resourcefulness, courage, resilience, and passion.
This isn't theory, it's practical advice straight from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who have done it. 5 years of conversations, 33 voices of experience, and now 99 tips to accelerate your masterpreneur journey. Get your copy today. Pre-order now to reserve your signed copy. Click the button below or scan the QR code to order from www.sbpro.com/99-tips. Okay, great. So before we do this, just want to mention that we did launch the book a little while ago. I just got to update the video, but actually we just launched the audio book. So if you want to hear the tips directly from each guest, that's included in the audio book. So, definitely a lot of wisdom and knowledge there. So now that we're done with the short commercial, Marcia, what are the three things that people should take away from what we discussed this evening?
So first, check the account, not the tool, right? What kind of account do you have? Don't think about whether it's free or paid. What kind of account? Number two, make sure there's human review before it touches a customer, a contract, or the public. And then finally, know what you own and don't give it away. And that relates to the intellectual property issues. Know how your IP is protected by AI or not protected. So know what you own and don't give it away. And that's it.
All right, short and sweet. So definitely, looking at your accounts, understanding what you've got and making sure that you don't give it away. So, no, this has been great, Marcia. I definitely appreciate you being on the show tonight. Anything you want to share before we close things out?
Nope. Please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Go to legallylucid.com, illuminatingwisdom.com. And I've also got a podcast, Leadership, Law, and Lightwork. Join in on that as well. You can find it on YouTube as well. So, and thanks so much for having me on here.
Okay, great. Well, thank you as well. And as I mentioned before, check out Marcia's LinkedIn and feel free to connect with her. The LinkedIn is in the chat as well. See her website, see what she's doing, keep track, and thanks again. So if you can hang on, I'm going to close things out and then we'll catch you up. So great. Well, always appreciate the audience, the interaction, the questions, the comments. That really makes the show so much better. And not only that, we're doing the show for you. So definitely helping us to guide it in a direction so we can help make it as valuable as possible for you. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for your comments and questions. And look forward to catching you next week. And as always, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.